Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Unacademy, India's largest online learning portal for the preparation of competitive exams. My name is Neela, and I'm going to be your guide and facilitator for CAT and other management exams. The question of what is right and wrong permeate to our everyday life. We often grapple with the moral dilemma of choosing the best decision or the decision which is convenient to us. We often face the dilemma of choosing the right course of action or something which suit our principles. Now, when it comes to an aptitude exam, a section in aptitude exam, it becomes all the more difficult because you are faced with a situation that you have never faced, or you are put up in a position that you have never encountered. So in today's session, we are going to talk about decision making of XAT, one of the most important sections of this exam, which could actually be a deal breaker. A lot of aspirants of XAT take this section very lightly. They do not actually prepare for decision making, and they assume as and when they go in the examination hall, have the paper before them, go to the section, they will deal with the section then and there. And hence, they take it for granted that these sections have a structured approach, or this section has a structured approach, which if you know, can maximize your score and actually maximize your overall score of XAT. So in today's session, I'm going to talk about three specific things: the approaches to make a decision, why XAT gives you decision making, and why decision making is important, and then after that, we will discuss some questions which appeared in previous year papers of XAT. All right, so that is going to be today's agenda. Before that, let me give you a brief introduction of myself. My name is Neelam Malkani, and I have trained around 20,000 students in 12 years period in test preparation industry. I have trained students of CAT, GRE, GMAT, IELTS, TOEFL, and for other management exams which are conducted for admission to Indian B schools. My areas of expertise have been English language and reasoning. I also design and set assessment papers of English and reasoning for different exams. For a brief period of time, I also served as an examiner of English for an international organization. Recently, I have written a comprehensive book of English for the preparation of competitive exams. The book is written in both Hindi and English. The video is brought to you by Unacademy, India's largest online learning portal. Let me take you to its portal and tell you how you can be part of this and you can start your preparation for your targeted exam. You can go in the Play Store of your mobile phone and download Unacademy Learning app. You have to fill in all the details, and then you will be shown three major offerings plus free courses, special classes. Once you have this app in your mobile phone, you can have access to all the classes available under free courses and special classes. You just have to type the code NEELA, and then these classes are going to be unlocked. But if you want to go for Plus and prepare for CAT exclusively, then you will have to subscribe the product. When you go further in the subscription, you will be shown all the features that you will be availing after you pay the fee. Features such as 30 hours of live sessions every day. So as per your convenient time and as per your availability, you can choose the time of your sessions. These classes are delivered by 14 plus top educators of India who have wealth of experience of guiding, mentoring students of management exams. These educators have extensive experience of taking exam themselves, and the courses which are delivered by these educators are well structured and well designed. Every month you see a new course being launched on Unacademy. So if you're targeting SNAP, so there is a grammar course available on Unacademy which is going to cater to the grammar section of SNAP. If you're targeting XAT only, Then reasoning course or decision making course will be dedicated to this section of XAT. So all the needs and requirements you have related to management exams will be fulfilled by these courses. When you go further, you will be shown different models of subscription which have been devised by Unacademy to suit your plan of this exam preparation. If you want to go for 1 month crash course, you can go for 1 month subscription. But if you're targeting CAT 2021, you will have to opt for 12 months course, that is yearly subscription, that will cost you 70,500. But if you want further 10% discount, you will have to type this referral code MEENA. With that, you will be able to avail 3% discount. And your fee is going to come down to 3,150 for 1 month and 15,750 for 12 months. Whichever model of subscription you use, you have to type this code to avail 10% for the discount. Alright? So the fee structure is best in the industry as well as very pocket friendly, right? So what are you waiting for? Go and download this app in your mobile phone. Start attending classes under free courses and special classes if you are contented with the level of education imparted by the educators. You can go for plus subscription later on. Alright? So you can begin your preparation right away. You don't have to pay anything to start preparing for these exams. So let's begin with today's session. That is, why XAT decision making for XAT, right? So let's begin with very important part. That is why decision making is important for XAT. So over a period of time, it has been noticed that 20 to 22 questions have been coming from decision making part. This used to be the part of analytical reasoning and logical reasoning. So there used to be 10 questions, 7, 8, 10 questions. After a few years, XAT decided, or XAT committee which administers the test, decided to give a different section to decision making, right? So it is a testimony to the importance this section has started to command, right? 20 to 20 questions. So you have to clear the cutoff, as well as if you score very well in this section, this can help you maximize your score of XAT, right? So this is how 22 questions will play a huge role in clearing the section cutoff as well as overall cutoff. It can increase your overall percentile. And for BM course, that is business management, XLRI offers 2 prominent courses. One is for HR, second is for BM. For business management course, your decision making cutoff is going to be higher. So if it is 75 marks for 75 percentile for HR, it's going to be 80 for business management, right? So this is one of the flagship courses offered by XLRI, and a lot of students find this course the prime reason for them to apply to XLRI. So if you're targeting this course only, then you will have to focus on decision making. This section conventionally has been in easy to moderate and very few questions. If there are 20 questions, 15 questions are going to be easy to moderate, 5 questions are going to be difficult, right? So the range has been this consistently. Some questions, major proportion of questions will be into easy to moderate category, while few questions, very few questions will be in higher difficulty level question. Now those questions will involve some intensive calculations because some data will be given, figures will be given, you will have to calculate with them and then come up with your answer. So those questions are going to be time consuming, else rest of the questions will be easy to do. As long as you're clear with the concept of decision making and you have done sufficient practice of XAT previous year papers, right? So the question, this whole section is not very challenging. All right, as long as you're through with the concept of decision making. So that is why this section is very, very important. It helps you clear the overall cutoff as well as maximize your score. Second, for BM, this section becomes all the more important. Third, it's not very tough. It's quite doable. Major proportion of the questions are very easy, quite attainable, so you can score very well. You just have to brush up your concept of decision making. So that is how I explained why decision making is important. Now, why decision making in XAT? CAT is not testing decision making, SNAP is not testing, right? Other exams are not testing except NMAT. Now, NMAT has started giving you decision-making questions, but those questions are very different from those of XAM, right? They are course of action questions, small caselets on the basis of which you have to find the correct course of action. But here, it's complete caselet followed by 4 to 5 questions. Sometimes the question can go up to the size of an RC, right? Now, why decision making in XAT, and what is it that XLRI wants to test in an aspirant? So if you know that, you will possibly be able to display those qualities. Now, XLRI offers a curriculum which is based on values, right? So there are some principles, some value system which XLRI has been adhering to since its inception. So it actually wants those aspirants who align with that value system, which XLRI believes in, or XAT allied colleges believe in. Since the exam is set and administered by XLRI, hence we would talk about XLRI now. So here, the value-based system or value-based curriculum which XLRI focuses on, it wants aspirants to know that this is something it wants in the candidates who want to study in XLRI. So that's the prime reason. It has decision making. Second, other institutes may focus on creating those managerial individuals or management resources who thrive on numbers, who thrive on data, who have managerial acumen, who have financial acumen. But at the same time, XLRI wants its candidates to be responsible and sustainable business leaders. And this whole focus can only be fulfilled by making the provision in the examination only, so that it can test what kind of individual it is going to have in its classroom. All right. So making those business resources who are intellectually advanced, but at the same time who are responsible and sustainable leaders. Decision making and problem solving are those skills which are vital to the skills of a manager. If you are working as an administrator, or if you are working as a manager, problem solving and decision making is something very, very, very crucial to discharging your duty as a manager. And that is why this is the part of your exam, right? So why no other exam test decision making, and why it's part and parcel of XAT, I hope it's clear. So XAT has an ideology, or XLRI has an ideology which it adheres to, and that is why it wants to test whether this ideological principles resonate with the aspirants or not. All right, and same time, decision making ability is something that you need to acquire if you want to work efficiently as a manager. So this is the whole tenet of having decision making in its test structure. Now what it tests, right? What is it that this decision making question or this decision making section is testing in an aspect? Now it challenges your ethics, right? So if you are faced with a complex scenario, a complicated situation, do you compromise on your ethics, or do you compromise on your principle, or you come up with a solution which is going to have a balanced approach? So do you compromise your ethics? What is your thinking process? How do you arrive at a decision? How do you make a decision, right? So are you dictated by your opinion, your prejudices, or are you basing your decision on some kind of rational or reasonable analysis? So what is your thinking pattern? Because the decision that you arrive at will also reflect the kind of person you are. All right. So that way they are testing how ethical you are, what your thinking pattern is, how you arrive at a decision, whether and also to see whether or not you will be able to solve real life problems. So most of these caselets that you are going to face in decision making sections are real life problems, have been replicated on the basis of those problems which are actually faced by organizations, people, communities, or thought leaders. The names are changed, the data is changed, other places are changed, but the scenario is almost different. It is akin to those situations which people faced in their real lives. Now, through testing your decision-making skill, it is testing whether in same situation you will be able to come up with a feasible solution or not, right? And how well you understand the objective and address the alternative. So whenever you face a decision-making dilemma, decision-making problem, you will have to consider all the stakeholders, all the alternatives. If you have 3 alternatives, 4 alternatives, and how you come up with the feasible solution out of all the alternatives available to you, right? So all these things are tested, what your thinking process is, how ethical you are in making your decisions, and whether you base your decision on your opinion, your prejudice, your own thinking, or some kind of reasoned analysis. Right? So I hope we are clear with it. Now this is what is tested. That means this is what you have to reflect. This is what you have to demonstrate. All right? Now, types of questions on decision making. Over a period of time, it has been observed there are mainly 3 kinds of questions based on decision making. Single question, a small paragraph is given followed by a single question. So when you spot this question in your exam, don't miss it, because you have to read less. You have to retain less information, and same time you have to deal with less amount of data. That means complexity is less. Always solve these questions first in decision making in order to gain some confidence in decision making section. Single question followed by a small paragraph followed by a single question. Now second will be single paragraph only. The paragraph is single, but it has multiple information. On the basis of those information or that information, you will be asked 2 to 3 questions. So these questions are fairly doable, right? Because you have to understand less amount of information. 4 to 5 questions. Paragraph is going to be of the length of an RC. 4 to 5 paragraph. There may be some calculations. There may be some data and numbers. You will have to get into some calculation in order to come up with the answer, right? So this is how the structure of the questions have been so far. 1 question, 2 to 3 questions, small paragraph, long passage followed by 4 to 5 questions, or sometimes 3 to 4 questions. Now these questions, if you are a very good reader and the kind of strategy you have chalked out for XAT, that this much amount you are going to spend on decision making, you can decide to deal with these questions. There is at least 1 long question in every year decision making exam. Alright? So I hope we are clear with that. Now let's move on and talk about the process of decision making, right? As I said, if you're more structured in your process and if you're more structured in approaching these questions, this section is going to be a cakewalk, right? It actually seems to be a very difficult section, but as long as you have conceptual clarity of decision making and you have done sufficient practice of XAT previous year papers, you're good to go, right? Now let's start the process of decision making. Now basically in psychology, the process of decision making is defined as diverging to explore the possible alternatives. So you are diverging because all the possible alternatives, all the possible decisions that are possible to be taken in that situation, you consider all of them. So you are diverging. And then you are converging on a solution. After considering multiple options, you are considering finally one option because that suits all the criteria, all the benchmark, all the standard you have set for making that decision. So diverging for the possibility and converging for the solution. Now, it may sound very complicated. Let's try to simplify it. Now, first of all, what you have to do is to read the case very carefully. So every situation will have some problem scenario. You have to read everything very, very carefully and identify the problem. Identification of the problem is extremely important because what the problem is. Unless you know the core of the problem, you won't be able to come up with the correct answer or correct decision. So know what your problem is. Then try to gather information about different stakeholders. So if the problem is concerning an organization, so the stakeholders are going to be employees, people who are running that organization, and people who are buying the product of that organization, or the customer or clients. So these are the stakeholders. No stakeholders. Even if the problem is related to a person's life, yeah, you will be given some issues and problems related to personal life. So what are these stakeholders, or who are these stakeholders? Knowing the stakeholders will give you some idea about how they are going to be affected by a specific decision. So identify the problem. Primary step is going to be what the problem is. Second, know your stakeholders, who all are associated with that problem or with that scenario. Now, next is going to be what is the important criteria for making the decision. Now, sometimes in the direction itself, you will be given choose the option which is most financially feasible. Choose the option which is most ethical in this situation. Choose the option which is most suitable with least harm. So you are clearly given the benchmark on which you have to make the decision. So if you have the direction, which option is going to maximize the profit for the company, that means you have to see the profit of the company as the main objective. If it says choose the option which is most ethical, that means you have to ignore everything and you have to choose the option which is righteous or which is morally correct. All right. So the directions, what are the directions? So on the basis of the direction, your objective is going to be laid down. So if you are clear with the problem, you are clear with your stakeholders, and then you are clear with the objective. Ultimately, what is it that I need to do with this problem? Your job is done. All you need to do is now eliminating the options. Now, unlike other questions of XAT, like critical reasoning, reading comprehension, you will find the options are not very close. 2 options or 3 options are right away eliminated. And you are then stuck between 2 options only. Then you see the objective again. What is my objective? My objective is to choose an option which is most ethical, or my objective is to choose an option which maximizes company's profit. With that objective, see if one of these is fulfilling and one of these is compromising. You will get your answer. Alright? So here 3 steps are very, very vital. 1, identifying the problem. 2, stakeholders. 3, your important criteria or your objective. Consider all possible solutions. Whether the choice you made actually had the desired effect. So if you are looking for the maximum profit for the company, if you are choosing A option, is it fulfilling that objective or not? Right? So see if that objective is fulfilled. Calculate the consequences of the solution versus the likelihood of satisfying the criteria. Choose the best option. Right? So this is how the approach should be there. So 3 steps, again, I'll reiterate that point because that's very, very important. Identify the problem, see who stakeholders are, and see what your objective is, what you need to do with that situation. Now, what kind of answers should be avoided? Come what may, you should not choose these kinds of answers, right? Now, one of such answers is procrastinating mindset. Now, you're facing a problem. That means proactively you should address the problem and come up with a solution. Procrastinating mindset is dilly-dallying the problem or dilly-dallying the solution. You are not coming up with something which is addressing the problem right there. It is possibly prolonging the problem, right? So any option which is procrastinating is not going to be your answer. Not doing anything, that means you are possibly not addressing the problem, maintaining the status quo. As the problem is, you are maintaining the status quo. That means you are not the part of solution making. You itself is the problem of the part of the problem, because you are not making solutions. So you have to be the part of solution. As a decision maker, you should be the part of solution making, not the part of problem creation. Right? So that is what you have to do. Procrastinating, that should be avoided. Not doing any option which shows that you are not doing anything should be eliminated. High-handedness or arrogance. So you are a decision maker. That means you are in the position of an authority. You are in the position of some kind of power. That is why you are the stakeholder in that decision making. So if any option shows you to be high-handed, that means you are being oppressive, or you are being autocratic, or you are neglecting others' opinion or others' interest, that should also not be considered, right? Another option that can also be eliminated is pliable, which shows you that you are very flexible, right? So you have decided a principle for your company, right? Or a kind of guiding principle for your company, which if the situation is okay with you, you follow. If the situation is not okay with you, you compromise. That means you are very flexible on your own principle as an organization, as well as an individual or a leader who is running that organization. Very pliable, compromising your ethics, your principles in a situation which is adverse, right? So that kind of answer should be avoided. Evasive, you are running away from the responsibility, which shows that you are actually not taking up the responsibility or making the decision because you do not want to go in the bad books of people. So you're running away from the taking charge or taking responsibility. Something which is impractical, right? Very idealistic answer, very idealistic solution. But practically, it's not feasible, practically not possible in the scenario that you are given. So do not choose that kind of option as well. So something which seems to be ideal, and something which is perfectly fitting the situation, but is not practically possible in your own country, in your own situation, or in the context that is given to you. Do not choose those answers as well. Something which is unethical, illegal, or something which is bearing losses. Ultimately, it's a business course. You are sitting for a business management exam, right? So your decision has to make business sense. Your decision should be financially feasible for the company that you are working for. So anything which is bearing losses or illegal, something which is unlawful or unethical, is a big no-no. When you are faced with these two things, like an option which is facing losses, an option which is unethical, you will always give importance to ethical option, though it is bearing losses for the company. Alright, so when you are faced with these two kinds of option, you should go with ethical option, right? So these are bad answers. Now look at what should be the correct answer. So upright, it should not compromise on morality, it should not compromise on ethics. So it's XLRI. I told you it runs on some principles, and it wants all the aspirants to have those principles or have an idea of those principles. So your answer is going to be upright. Your answer is going to be morally, ethically correct. It should be humane. That means high-handedness nahi honi chahiye. You should not look like you are autocrat, oppressive, but you are also taking care of other stakeholders. If you are the administrator of a company, you are also taking care of the employees. In fact, the employees who are at the lowest rung of the hierarchy. You are also taking care of those employees. So you should look humane. And you are working as a responsible leader of your community or your organization, somebody who is taking account the interest of other people who you are working for, and the people among whom you are working. That means the community. So if you are running an organization which is into extraction of natural resources, you also have to take care of the natural resources you are causing harm to, or the people surrounding your establishment. So your approach should always be human. Now, if you are faced with two options where you are maintaining the status quo, the problem is as it is, and the second option is your solution is not addressing the problem, but you are doing something, right? So sometimes none of the options is actually best. So you have to choose the option which is least worst, right? Which is causing least damage. In that situation, always go with an option which makes you look you are doing something. Instead of maintaining the status quo, prolonging the problem, you are doing something, you are taking some action. So if faced with this kind of option, always go with an option which makes you look as if you are doing something. Practically feasible, ethically, morally correct. All right? So these are the benchmarks on which you have to make your decisions. I hope we are clear with what kind of answers should be avoided and what kind of answers should be chosen. Now, unless we have some practice, we won't be able to put these concepts into practice. So let's start discussing previous year questions of that. I have taken a mixed bag of questions. One question, that means one paragraph followed by one question, then one question followed by 2 to 3 questions. The caselets, which are long caselets, which are possibly not feasible here, that I'm going to discuss in my special classes, right? And because we will have dedicated session for decision making and special classes as well. So for that, you can always, come and attend those special classes. Fine. So let's start with practice. And if you have any doubt, you can put up in the live chat. I'm going to read your comments today and answer then and there only. So do let me know if you have any doubt, or I'll start with practicing questions. Okay, so as of now, I don't have any comment. Let's start with today's practice of that decision-making questions, right? Now, I'm going to read it out for you so that you understand the whole situation thoroughly. And we are going to stick to 3 basic principles. We are going to define the problem, or we are going to identify the problem. Then we are going to understand who the stakeholders are. And third, what our objective is, right? Start. A database software manufacturing company found out that the product it had launched recently had a few bugs. The product has already been bought by more than 1 million customers. The company realized that bugs could cost their customers significantly. However, if it informs the customer about the bug, it fears losing credibility. Now, this is what is the situation. So, एक सॉफ्टवेयर कंपनी ने को ये पता लगा कि जो इन्होंने प्रोडक्ट लॉन्च किया है इट हैड सम प्रॉब्लम. द प्रोडक्ट ऑलरेडी बहुत सारे लोगों ने खरीद लिया है, मोर देन 1 मिलियन पीपल. कंपनी ने ये रियलाइज किया कि जो बग है वो उनके कस्टमर को सिग्निफिकेंट नुकसान पहुंचा सकता है, काफ़ी नुकसान पहुंचा सकता है. हाउएवर, उसके बावजूद अगर ये कंपनी इन्फॉर्म करती है कस्टमर्स को तो कंपनी की क्रेडिबिलिटी लूज हो जाएगी, विश्वसनीयता खतरे में पड़ जाएगी. तो कंपनी क्या करे, राइट? सो हियर द प्रॉब्लम इज कंपनी इज इन द डिलेमा. क्या करे कंपनी? विश्वसनीयता खोए कि लोगों की भरपाई करे, लोगों की नुकसान की भरपाई करे. दैट इज व्हाट इज द प्रॉब्लम. आइडेंटिफिकेशन ऑफ द प्रॉब्लम इज कंपनी इस डिलेमा में है कि अल्टीमेटली कंपनी क्या करे. हु आर द स्टेक होल्डर्स? स्टेक होल्डर्स, कंपनी, ऑफ कोर्स, the management of the company, because that is what is going to make this decision. Another stakeholder of this decision is the customer who have already bought this product. All right. Now, this is the second step. Third step is what is our solution? What is our objective here? Now, objective is very clearly given in the STEM question. It says what would be the most ethical option for the company. So our doubt is minimized here. Our confusion is minimized here. In this situation, what is going to be most ethical for the company? So company के पास का dilemma ये है, company face करे losses और company जो है अपनी credibility खोए. Now, let's look at the options. Apologize and fix the bug for all its customer, even if it has to incur losses. So company apologize कर रही है, that means it admits that it made a mistake, और it's not the admission of mistake alone, it's also कंपनी जो है उनको फिक्स करके दे रही है, वो प्रॉब्लम को फिक्स करके दे रही है, मतलब वो प्रॉब्लम को सुधार रही है. सो दैट इज एड्रेसिंग द प्रॉब्लम because it's the most ethical thing to do in this scenario. Let's hold it. B. Do not tell customers about bugs and remove them only when customers face problem, even if it means losses for the customer. Now, here another stakeholder is facing losses, not the company. And it's not something which is ethical thing to do. Because company is not admitting, company is not fixing. वो तभी फिक्स करेगी जब एक कस्टमर उसको रिपोर्ट करेगा उस प्रॉब्लम को. सो दैट इज नॉट समथिंग विच इज एथिकल थिंग टू डू इन दिस सिनेरियो, राइट. कंपनी की रेपुटेशन ठीक हो जाएगी, मतलब यहाँ पे कंपनी की क्रेडिबिलिटी लूज नहीं होगी, बट दिस इज नॉट एथिकल, सो इट इज कॉम्प्रोमाइजिंग ऑन आवर ऑब्जेक्टिव. थर्ड, कीप साइलेंट, डू नथिंग. आई टोल्ड यू, प्रोकास्टिनेटिंग द सिचुएशन or dilly-dallying the situation is never an option. So keep silent, do nothing. So you are not addressing the problem at all. You are maintaining the status quo. This kind of option is never preferred. D, keep silent but introduce an improved product that is bug-free at the earliest. Okay, fine. Now you have addressed the problem, but you have addressed the problem for those customers who are going to buy the product in the future, not for those who have already bought it and incurred the losses. E, take the product off the market and apologize to customer. ठीक है, you are taking the product off the market. That's okay, fine. So your credibility, you are not, you're overlooking that part. You're apologizing to the customers, fine. But how are you rectifying your mistakes? Are you fixing the problem? Are you giving them the improved product? Because they have already purchased the product. And they need a product, that's why they purchased it. Right? So take the product off the market, apologizing. Instead of, apart from apologizing, you also have to fix the product. So here, very clearly, the answer is A. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, you can come to this answer if you have a guiding principle that you have to choose the option which is most ethical. Alright? Fine. One more question. Just read it out. Meanwhile, I'll just check if I am online. Okay. Fine, I'll read it out for you. The city of Nagar has a population of 10 million, 2 million, among whom were rich. So 10 lakh की population में 2 million were rich, 3 million poor, 5 million belong to middle class. Right? This is how the demographic division has been given of a town called Nagar. Saundarya Cosmetic manufactured and sold beauty products to rich class at a premium price. ठीक है, एक कंपनी है सौंदर्या कॉस्मेटिक प्रोडक्ट जो प्रीमियम प्रोडक्ट्स को जो है रिच लोगों को बेचती है प्रीमियम प्राइस पे. Its products were very popular with customers. Many people from middle class and poor segment of population aspired to buy these products but could not afford them because of high prices. Of late, sales growth was stagnating in rich segment. So company जो है वो किनको डील कर रही है? Rich class को only. Now rich class को डील कर रही है and same time it's charging premium prices. Products are very popular and the people of middle class and poor class also aspire to buy those products, right? अब कंपनी की जो सेल है वो स्टेगनेंट हो गई है रिच सेगमेंट में. सो जितनी सेल थी उतनी ही है, उससे बढ़ नहीं रही है, सेल्स ग्रोथ नहीं हो रही है. नाउ क्वेश्चन है, व्हिच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग इज द बेस्ट ऑप्शन फॉर सौंदर्या कॉस्मेटिक टू मैक्सिमाइज लॉन्ग टर्म प्रॉफिट्स, राइट? सो यहाँ पे हम अगेन हमें गाइडिंग प्रिंसिपल दे दिया गया है, दैट इज व्हाट शुड कंपनी डू टू मैक्सिमाइज इट्स प्रॉफिट. सो द प्रॉब्लम इज कंपनी की सेल्स स्टेगनेंट हो गई है और कंपनी जो सेल्स है वो रिच सेगमेंट में स्टेगनेंट हो गई है, जो सिर्फ 2 मिलियन है 10 में से. 5 और 3 8 मिलियन लोग रिच और मिडिल क्लास से हैं जो इस प्रोडक्ट को खरीदना चाहते हैं. कंपनी को लॉन्ग टर्म प्रॉफिट को गेन करने के लिए क्या करना चाहिए? वेरी क्लियरली द ऑब्जेक्टिव इज टू मैक्सिमाइज द लॉन्ग टर्म प्रॉफिट or to ensure that long-term profit is there for the company. What should company do? First, sell the same product at lower prices to middle and poor classes. Now this is not feasible. At any case or in any case, this is not feasible. Because you are pricing a product as per your cost, right? So possibly your cost is X, that is where you're pricing this to a specific segment. And the same thing at a lower price is sold to different segment because you want to penetrate that section. Is that possible for a company? Definitely not. One, the same product cannot be priced differently for a different segment. That is going to incur company loss, because if that product is priced as per the cost, that means you are going to reduce the price and you are going to incur losses. Same time, same product priced differently for different product, right? So that is definitely cheating a specific segment. Why would rich people be paying higher prices for the same product? All right, so not feasible. Second, sell its product under different brand names to middle and poor class. So the product is going to be same product, sell its product under different brand names. So the product is same, only the name is different, right? So if you are selling X product to rich class, the same product by Y name is going to be sold to poor and middle class. That is again not feasible for an organization, and that's not possible. Third, sell similar product of different quality standard with different brand names to middle classes and poor class. Now you are also varying the quality. So the high quality, because of which you were charging premium prices, now you are compromising the quality or different quality standard. So it is not as high in quality or as superior in quality as the premium product is. And that is why you are bringing down the prices. You are charging reduced prices. And hence, for poor classes and for middle class people, it is going to be affordable. And that way, they are also fulfilling their aspirations to buy the product of Saundarya Cosmetic. Same time, company is also not facing any losses. So two stakeholders, company, rich people, poor and middle class, all are satisfied. Rich people, because ultimately the product is of different quality. The product that they are buying on a premium price is of different quality. And the product which is offered to middle class and poor class will have different quality standards. Alright? Poor and middle class, that stakeholder is also satisfied because their aspiration to buy the product is fulfilled. Company also does not face any losses because the quality standard is different. So all three stakeholders are satisfied. And the objective of long-term benefit because 8 million population cannot be ignored. You were catering to 2 million population earlier and your sales has come to a stagnant point now. That means you don't see any growth in future. That means you will have to shift focus on 8 million people, right? So long-term benefit is also realized. So three objectives are identification of the problem, all stakeholders and objective. All are fulfilled. Why not D and E? Continue to target rich and hope that today's middle class would be tomorrow's rich class. Now this option actually presupposes that this class is going to be rich in few years. So you keep targeting rich, this middle class finally elevate to the standard of rich people and they will start affording your products, right? So it's something which any company wouldn't want to do, right? And same time, it presupposes something. Target middle class as it is the largest segment and forget about the rich. That is also not financially feasible because you are already targeting 2 million people. And sales are there. Sales have come to stagnant point. That's different thing, but sales are there. So you cannot ignore them. Keeping that target in mind, you also have to diverse in different segments. That's how the balanced approach is going to be devised. Alright, so the answer is going to be C. Fine? Okay, question number, next question. You, a recruitment manager, are interviewing Mike, a hardworking young man who has problem in speaking fluent English. He has studied in vernacular medium school and colleges. Right, so that's the situation. So far, we don't have any problem, except he has problem in speaking English fluently. Amongst the following options, what would you choose to do if your company has vacancy? So you are a recruitment manager. Your company has a vacancy. You have a candidate, right? He's hardworking and who has studied in Hindi medium school, and hence he cannot speak English fluently. What would you do if you have a vacancy in your company? क्या करेंगे आप? A, I would hire him in all cost. So that is not feasible. That's not a viable option in any case on all cost, because you will have to see the cost to the company. You are working for a company. You are not doing any yeoman service, right? You are working for a company. You will have to see the financial feasibility of a candidate, cost to the company. So in all cost, definitely not the answer. Very generalistic and very extreme. I would hire him for a production or a finance job, but not for marketing job, which requires good communication skills. Now this option actually, again, is based on an assumption. The assumption is that the job in a production or job in a finance does not require communication skill, and a person who has studied in a vernacular medium and who does not speak English can do very well in these two areas, just because he is hardworking. All right. Now, again, this is based on some kind of presupposition. It does not give you any data that person is suitable for finance and production job, right? Just because he has studied, he's hardworking does not make him a suitable and appropriate candidate for a production and finance job. Third, I would ask him to improve his communication skill and come back. Now, you see some merit in him because he is a hardworking man, right? So possibly you will not completely reject his candidature and ask him to come back when he works on his communication. Moreover, when you actually know that communication is not something that can be improved in a limited period of time, you give him 3 months and he would come up with improved communication. That is possibly not feasible. I would not hire him, as he might be a burden on the organization because of the poor communication skill. Now, it also is based on presupposition, because you would assume here that your organization want only those employees who have good communication skills, and that is why this person who is hardworking is worthless for your organization. E, I would hire him for the job he is good at and provide training in other areas. Now, this is going to be the most feasible, most viable option among all. He's a hardworking man. He studied in vernacular background. So there is one strength, there is one weakness. If there is a strength, I would give him a job which utilizes his strength, right? So other than being hardworking, I would go to his education profile or his qualification and see what he can perform very well, what kind of work he can perform very well. And then I will also give him necessary training to excel in those areas which are his shortcomings. That is how, as a recruitment manager, I am doing justice with the talent which has come to me as well as to my organization, which needs a person. All right. So here the stakeholder was Mayank, the person who has come, and the recruitment manager. The stakeholders are company and Mayank, right? And the objective was here, what is the best option here in this situation, where you have a person who is hardworking but same time does not know English well or does not speak English well, right? So with those three guiding principles, we did this answer as well. Now it's a long paragraph followed by at least 2 questions. So I'll give you 30 seconds time to read, and then I'll explain to you what this whole scenario is. All right. So the situation is several companies operating in 7 northeastern states of the country. The organization has a history of participative decision making, wherein people deliberate openly about pros and cons of every important decision, and a broad consensus is taken before taking the final decision. So इस company का एक trend है, it has participative decision making. So all the people involved will deliberate on the issue and a consensus is drawn and then a final decision is taken. So सबकी सहमति से एक निर्णय होता है. In Saral company, every employee gets a salary proportional to the sales achieved. So this is the structure of the company's salary structure. जितनी सेल होती है, जितनी सेल के लिए रिस्पॉन्सिबल होता है, उस प्रोपोर्शन में उस पर्सन की सैलरी होती है. A new general manager joined during the beginning of this month and challenged the organization's sole focus on sales to determine salaries. So नया GM आया, उसने जो है इस होल सिस्टम को जो है वो चैलेंज किया. He urged the top management to include 2 more additional parameters in determining the salaries of the employees: collection of information about competitors and quality of relationship with the retailers. So उसका ये कहना है कि employees की सैलरी सिर्फ सेल्स फिगर पे बेस ना हो. 2 more important criteria भी इसका पार्ट होना चाहिए. 1, कितने वो कॉम्पिटिटर के बारे में कितनी इंफॉर्मेशन कलेक्ट करते हैं, and second, the quality of relationship with the retailer, right? So उनकी relationship retailer से कितनी अच्छी है, ये 3 factors के basis पे salary जो है वो देनी चाहिए. This is the scenario, right? Now let's see what the question is. Manohar, the highest earning employee for the last 3 years, vehemently opposes the GM's proposal. सबसे ज़्यादा सैलरी ड्रॉ करता है मनोहर 3 साल से, वो इस प्रपोजल को vehemently अपोज करता है, उसका विद्रोह करता है. Which of the following could be most likely reason for him to oppose the proposal? किस रीजन की वजह से मनोहर ये अपोज कर रहा है? Now the problem is the policy is changed by GM and an employee who draws higher salary opposes that. That's the problem. Stakeholder, Manohar here, top management and GM, right? Now what is your objective here? The objective is क्या रीजन हो सकता है जिसकी वजह से मनोहर इस चीज का विरोध कर रहा है. So the guiding principle here, our objective is the Manohar's point of view, Manohar's reason for protest. Look at the option. He considers the proposal as serious threat to his favorable position in Saral company. Now his position is not threatened. Whatever position he has, that is not going to be threatened, because the change policy is going to change the structure of the salary, not the position, right? So this option is out of context. He is not interested in collecting the information regarding competitors. So here we do not know anything about that, whether he was keen or not keen on collecting information about competitors. He possibly has the objection of basing his salary on figures other than sales figures, right? So B is also not, that is something we assume here. That is not something which is supported by the facts we are given in the caselet. Third, no clarity regarding the relative importance of 3 parameters, right? So now this seems to be a very close option. That possible objection of Manohar may be कि मेरी सैलरी का कितना % सेल्स पे होगा, कितना % कॉम्पिटिटर की इंफॉर्मेशन लाने पे होगा, और कितना % जो है वो रिटेलर्स के साथ रिलेशनशिप पे होगा, right? Now this could be one of the reasons, that because GM did not say anything about it, he just said these 2 criteria should also be included, right? Now if this had been the basis of his protest or his disapproval of the idea, he would have got clarity on this. He would have gone to the GM, got this clarity that still sales figure will be the prominent one, right? So this is also not the answer, because this could have been easily addressed. If this was the only problem of Manohar, this could have been easily addressed. D. He's not interested in maintaining quality relationship with retailers. He's possibly highest earning employee for 3 years. He's possibly having good relationship. That is why he's responsible for highest sales because he is drawing highest salary. This is also not something which is supporting the data or the facts. E. He may need to work harder to earn the higher salary. 3 years he has been drawing higher salary, and that is on the basis of sales figure. Now he has achieved that, he has already accomplished that. Now he will have to do something extra. He will have to acquire information about the competitors in the market, as well as he will have to do some extra bit to maintain the qualitative relationship with retailers. So that will require extra effort in order to draw same amount of salary that he had been drawing on the single parameter. So he's possibly not willing to work harder because this would require him to work extra for these two parameters. So on the basis of the facts, cold facts, no presupposition, no assumption from our side, no prejudice associated with this person Manohar, we can come to this answer supported by the caselet. Alright, so as we have been doing in critical reasoning, no supposition from the reader, it has to be strictly based on the information provided in the case or the argument. So here, that is why E is the answer. One more question based on this case letter. The top management refused to implement the proposal of new GM from the beginning of the next month. So जो टॉप मैनेजमेंट को जीएम ने प्रपोजल दिया था, उन्होंने अगले महीने से उसको करने से इनकार कर दिया. Which of the following could be the most justified reasons for the management refusal? किस वजह से मैनेजमेंट ने इस चीज के लिए इनकार किया है? So take your time, go through the options, and then we are going to discuss the solution. All right? All right, I hope you came to your answer because we understood what kind of company this is. Saral organization is believes in participative decision making, right? So the proposal has been put forwarded by GM, but as the trend goes in the company, as has been the tradition in the company, it involves all the people, all the stakeholders in deliberation, in discussion, a consensus is made and then a decision is taken up. That way, E is going to be the correct answer. The top management would need time to deliberate and get consensus from all the quarters of the organization because it believes in participative decision making, right? All other options are outrightly eliminated to ensure that no manager will get credit for a major change soon after joining. So that's definitely not the answer because you are being very prejudiced here if you are taking it this option. To avoid attracting criticism for their failure to implement a similar scheme, again, based on some kind of presupposition. His past experience is limited to 7 northeastern states only. The company is also based in these 7 northeastern states only. The GM is new to the organization and he would require some time to implement the new plan. Now, he would require some time, but why would we have to give the reason that why the top management would refuse the proposal? We have to give that reason, not why GM need more time to think about it. Alright, so that is why answer is E. So as I said, you will not find options very complicated or very close, right? As long as you are clear with the case, the facts, and you know who the stakeholders are, you can easily come to your answer. All right, one more question, take 30 seconds time, and then I'll explain to you. Okay, so it was the end of the performance review cycle for the year 2012 when you asked your subordinates about any problem they were facing. So you have been given a role play and you have been given a situation. Performance review cycle है 2012 का and आपने अपने सभी सबॉर्डिनेट से बोला है कोई भी अगर वो प्रॉब्लम फेस करें तो वो बताएं. Natarajan told you that an important member of his team, Varadarajan, who had also won the Best Performance Award for year 2011, was not taking interest in the work. So आपकी टीम का एक मेंबर है नटराजन, उसने बोला कि उसकी टीम का एक मेंबर है वरदराजन जिसने बेस्ट परफॉर्मेंस जीता था 2011 में, वो अपने काम में इंटरेस्ट नहीं ले रहा है. Despite Natarajan's counseling, no change was noticed in Varadarajan, rather his attitude deteriorated. नटराजन ने उसको काउंसिल किया लेकिन उसका जो सिचुएशन है और खराब हो गई, डिटेरियोरेटेड. You had also received such information from other employees. आपको वरदराजन के बारे में किन्हीं और एम्प्लॉयज से भी पता चला था. You had not interfered, hoping that Natarajan, an experienced hand, would be able to solve the problem. आपने पहले इस चीज़ का नोटिस नहीं लिया, आपको ये लगा नटराजन अपने अंडर वरदराजन को हैंडल कर लेगा, सिचुएशन को सॉल्व कर लेगा. बट नाउ that Natarajan himself brought this to your notice, you decided to call Varadarajan and counsel him. Now, क्योंकि नटराजन ने आपको ये खुद बताया है, आपने ये डिसाइड किया है कि आप वरदराजन को बुलाएंगे और उसको काउंसिल करेंगे, right? So the situation is clear. The problem is one employee is not taking interest in his work. The employee who won Best Performance Award in 2011, last year only. The problem is this: stakeholders, Varadarajan, your organization, you and Natarajan, right? Basically, Varadarajan and your organization, right? And what is the objective? Let's see the question and see what objective is. Which of the following could be the most unlikely reason for Varadarajan's declining involvement in workplace? इनमें से कोई ऐसा कौन सा ऐसा रीजन है जो वो नहीं हो सकता उसके खराब परफॉर्मेंस के लिए? ठीक है, let's look at the options. So very clearly we have to see the situation. Last year उसने बेस्ट परफॉर्मेंस अवार्ड जीता था, अब वो अपने काम में इंटरेस्ट नहीं ले रहा है. ऐसा कौन सा रीजन हो सकता है जो रीजन नहीं हो सकता उसके बैड परफॉर्मेंस के लिए? So we have to find out all the reasons which can lead to his bad performance. First, Varadarajan does not find the work challenging enough as he has already achieved the best performance award. Could be one of the reasons. Last year he got best performance award, so he has already produced his best and now he doesn't feel challenged, he doesn't feel pushed, or he doesn't feel that he needs to push his boundaries, right? Could be one of the reasons. B, others in the organization have been trying to pull him down since he was declared best performer. This could also be a feasible reason, right? So since he is not satisfied with his the behavior of his co-workers, his colleagues, he's possibly not being able to give his best because all the people are trying to pull him down. Varadarajan was not promoted after his superlative performance, while another colleague, Suradarajan, was promoted, although he was not as good a performer as Varadarajan. So despite performing very well, he was not promoted by the administration. जबकि एक और एम्प्लॉय था सुरदराजन, उसको प्रमोट किया गया, though he was not as good a performer as Varadarajan was. It could also let a person down. It could also kill a person's spirit to give his best. So this could also be a reason. Okay? Because we have been told of the situation where Natarajan, his boss, as well as other people have said ill about him. B, after putting in lots of effort for the superlative performance, Varadarajan felt burned out, right? He possibly had to do everything possible to earn that best performance award, right? And putting in that much effort or pushing his limits or pushing himself to the limit, to the extreme limits, has burned himself out. So that way, this is also one of the reasons that he doesn't feel motivated, he doesn't feel enthusiastic about his work, and the work performance is declining. All are reasons except E. Varadarajan was appreciated by his boss for achievement last year. It does not give you any reason to believe that his performance is declining because he was appreciated. right? Very clearly, answer is E. Now, one more question based on the same case set. Varadarajan did not find his work challenging enough. Given below are some steps that could be taken to motivate him. Right? Now, the combination of some steps are to be taken by the person to motivate him because he was an important resource to the organization. That is why he won the best award, employee award last year. That means he needs to be motivated again to give his best for the organization. Give Varadarajan a more challenging assignments. So that is definitely going to push him to his limits, and he is going to perform better, or he is going to perform at par with the level that he used to perform earlier. Transfer Varadarajan from projects department to training department. That is not going to solve the problem, right? If he is not enthusiastic, if he is not willing to work, he will not be willing in training department as well. Why would you want that department to suffer with a kind of employee who is not willing to work, right? So this is, you are doing something, but you are not addressing the problem. You are not addressing the problem. So the benchmark is you should address the problem. Third, ask him to take a vacation for 2 months. Is that solving your problem? Is that guaranteeing that he is going to be willing to work for your organization as energetically as he used to do earlier? That presupposes something. That 2 months vacation is going to fill him with energy, with gusto to come back and give his best. That just presupposes something. Alright? So your answer or your solution should not be based on some kind of assumptions. Send him for further training on decision making under stress. Now he is under stress, some kind of stress, work related, peer pressure related, his performance related, personal problem. He's under some kind of stress. That is why an employee who got the best performance award last year is not performing to his optimum level, or is not performing at all. So give him some training, some tools, some mind training so that he can cope up with the challenges he is facing, and then he can be as productive as he was earlier, right? So 4 and 1 is going to solve the problem. Answer is going to be C. Alright? So one case set followed by 2 questions. If you find one question challenging, then you can also pick and choose the question that you would like to attempt. Given negative marking is there, given you will have to pay the penalty for marking a wrong answer if you find a question challenging on a specific caselet. Give it a thought. Despite that, if you're not coming to the answer specifically, deal with it, because you have already done one question. Alright? One more question based on this. You overheard a conversation between Varadarajan and his colleagues over an official dinner. He expressed his unhappiness about the fact that good performers were not given their due credit, while poor performers were promoted faster. If Varadarajan is right, which of the following steps would help in creating better organization? Now you are heading the organization and you come to know about this situation. If he is right, in that condition, what is it that you should be doing to create better organization? Promote Varadarajan with immediate effect. He hasn't done anything. He hasn't done anything significant to deserve a promotion, right? He's just expressed his opinion, and that too condition is if he is right. So that's out of the context. Ensure that performance is objectively and transparently assessed. Now the point that he has raised is that good performers were not given their due credit and poor performers were promoted faster. Now, if that is true, that means there is some flaw in your system to assess employees' performance. That problem has to be fixed. If it is objective, then this kind of situation would not arise. If the whole process of performance evaluation of the employee is objective based on some kind of transparent system, where employees can see on what basis they are being evaluated, and the people who are evaluating them will also see how they are performing, that transparent system will ensure that no one is full of any kind of resentment or dissatisfaction. Alright? So that kind of system will lead to the creation of a better organization. Your leading principle here is which of these is going to create better organization. So that is what your objective. So objective is this. Answer is going to be B. Why not C? Give another assignment to Varadarajan. He is not motivated. And he feels that Those people who are unworthy are being promoted, and those people who are actually worthy of promotion are not given due credit. Giving another assignment is not going to solve the problem. You are doing something, but you are not addressing the problem. So merely doing something is not tantamount to solving the problem. You have to do something to address the problem. Give high salary to Varadarajan out of context, fire Varadarajan out of context. Right? Your objective here is to create better organization. That can only be created with B. Your problem is not Varadarajan. Your problem is the system that he is dissatisfied with. If you address that problem of that system, that ill practice which exists in your organization, the problem is going to be addressed. Right? So very easy, doable caselet followed by 3 questions. So you have to identify these questions, right? In SAT decision making, you will definitely get such caselets which are very easy to read. You can easily process the information, retain the information, and come up with your correct answer. Okay? So there's one more caselet. Quickly go through this, and then I'll explain to you what it says. Now, Professor Vijaya, the chairperson of the faculty academic committee, was trying to understand the implications of decision taken by the student placement committees on placement issues. So there is a Professor Jaya in a college, in an institution, who heads faculty academic committee. Now she is trying to take the decision. She is trying to understand the implication taken by the student placement committee. So student placement committee ने कुछ decision लिया है on placement issue. उसके implication को समझने के लिए Professor Jaya जो है वो she is trying. It was alleged that Biswajit, a final year student, inflated his grades in his biodata that was sent to the recruiters. एक student ने अपने grades को ज़्यादा करके बताया जब उसने अपना resume recruiters को भेजा. The president of SPC requested the FAC to debar Biswajit from the campus recruitment process. Now, जो president है SPC, another student, उसने ये कहा है कि विश्वजीत को debar किया जाए, उसको निकाला जाए campus recruitment process से, ताकि वो किसी campus के लिए बैठ ना सके. When the matter was brought up for discussion in FAC, one of the professors remarked that Biswajit too should be allowed to defend himself. So एक प्रोफेसर ने उस कमेटी की डिस्कशन में बोला विश्वजीत को भी अपना साइड रखने का मौका दिया जाना चाहिए. When Biswajit arrived for the meeting, the situation became even more challenging. जब वो आया, the situation और complicated हुई. How? Biswajit raised the issue that many other students who had misrepresented grades to get coveted jobs had gone scot free. तो उसने ये बोला कि और भी कई स्टूडेंट्स हैं जिन्होंने अपने ग्रेड्स को मिसरिप्रेजेंट किया है, यानी इन्फ्लेट करके बताया है, उनको आसानी से छोड़ दिया गया था. They were scot free. They gone scot free. He alleged that these students were close to the president SPC. तो SPC का जो president है उससे close थे, and therefore no action was taken against them. उनके खिलाफ कोई action नहीं लिया गया. He stated that somebody has deliberately manipulated his grades in the biodata. अब वो ये claim कर रहा है कि उसके बायोडेटा में जो फिगर्स हैं उसने नहीं क्लेम किए, उसने नहीं इन्फ्लेट किए, किसी और ने मैनिपुलेट किया है. This allegation confused the members and it was decided to adjourn the meeting. Right? So इस पूरी मीटिंग में members और confused हो गए जब उसको विश्वजीत को अपना साइड रखने को बोला गया, and then he put up all these facts, जिसकी वजह से members confused हो गए, मीटिंग को adjourn करना पड़ा. Vijaya was to decide the next course of action. विजया को जो है वो ये डिसाइड करना था कि नेक्स्ट कोर्स ऑफ एक्शन क्या होना चाहिए. सो सिचुएशन इज क्लियर. प्रॉब्लम इज एक इंफॉर्मेशन आई एसपीसी के प्रेसिडेंट की तरफ से कि एक स्टूडेंट ने अपने फिगर्स को इन्फ्लेट किया है ग्रेड्स को, उसको निकाला जाए, कैंपस में ना बैठना दिया जाए. उस स्टूडेंट को भी बुलाया गया. उस स्टूडेंट ने ये बताया कि एक्चुअली और भी स्टूडेंट्स ने किया है, उनको कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं हुई है, दे वर स्कॉट फ्री, और मैंने ये नहीं किया है, किसी और ने मेरे रिज्यूमे में मैनिपुलेट किया. Right? Next course of action. So stakeholders, SPC, Biswajit, and FAC. Right? Problem is some manipulation in grades. Now, what in your opinion would be the most appropriate action? Vijaya, the person who is taking care of all these things, What in your opinion would be the most appropriate action to be taken by Vijaya? Debar Vishwajit and the president of SPS from the placement process, as they have failed to uphold the rules of the SPC. Now, SPC has alleged Vishwajit, Vishwajit has alleged SPC. So far, you have not come to your to the truth, right? You haven't actually discovered the truth. These are just allegations. You haven't done any investigation. You haven't actually examined all these statements. So, on the basis of merely statements or someone's claim, you cannot debar. So, that is very hasty approach. A is definitely not the answer. Suspend Viswajit and the president of SPC. Again, you are taking a negative action, strong action against both and suspending them without actually discovering the truth, without actually corroborating the truth by talking to other people or by gathering more information. Both are eliminated. Constitute a fact-finding committee to investigate the matter and ask them to submit a report to you within a week's time. Now, this talks about some kind of verification. Fact-finding committee. That means a committee which is going to investigate further, which is going to dig deeper into the issue and fetch some kind of detail which is going to corroborate their claim, whether SPS president is right or Viswajit is right. And then only you can make any of the decision. D. Apprise the corporate recruiters of the situation and assure them that corrective action will be taken. Now, the resume has already been sent to one of the recruiters, and Vishwajit says other people have also done the same thing. That means before recruiters, your college reputation is at stake. That you would not like to, risk. So that way, you would also do something. Had this been situation within the college, you would not have involved recruiters. But the resume has been sent to the recruiter, and if they would like to verify, then the college reputation is going to be compromised. So, apprise the corporate recruiters of the situation and assure them that corrective action will be taken. So, merely informing them is not going to suffice. You're also asking them or telling them that corrective action is going to be taken up. So here, E option which says both C and D are going to address the problem. Yes, your stakeholder are also recruiters because the campus process is going to be done by them and the resume has already been sent to them by these two. So here, stakeholders, all stakeholders are to be taken into account. Hence, E is going to be your answer. One more question. It was found that a large section of the students have been indulging in such practices. Unfortunately, the HR manager of a much coveted campus recruiter who is an alumnus of the college came to know about this. बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स ने ये किया है और एक HR मैनेजर जो इसी कॉलेज से पास आउट है उसको भी इसके बारे में पता हुआ. Considering yourself in the position of HR manager, what would be your reaction? Now, we have to think from the HR manager point of view. The one who is going to recruit students from his own college, the college which he has passed out from. And he comes to know about the situation that students are inflating their grades. They are manipulating with their grades. They are not being true about their academic profile. What would you do? So here the situation is changed. From Vijaya, you have to think from an HR point of view. Who has to do justice with his organization that he is working for, and same time, since he is also passed out from the college, he is also a stakeholder, right? So here, express your displeasure and stop any further recruitment from the college. So some students have done this, not all students have done this, right? And you are a recruiter, as a recruiter, are not going to, delist a college from your recruitment process just because some students have forged some data. Same time, you are from that same college, right? So you would want that college students to come up and work in the corporate so that the alumni base is built up. So A is definitely not the answer. Talk to your contact in the college and try to find out the truth. Could be, right? So you would like to find out the truth, but let's hold it. Do not change anything and continue the process as if nothing happened, right? So you would definitely not do anything. Maintaining status quo is never the solution, never. Ask the college to send a fresh set of biodata as you wanted, verify grades of the students. Now, this verified grades of the student will solve the entire problem, because as a recruiter the only problem you have is students have forged their data, their academics, right? So if you ask them to give verified grades of the students, that to college, not by students, that is going to solve the entire problem, that they will have access to their actual grades on the basis of which you are going to shortlist or reject them, right? E. Ask the SPC to resend the details of the shortlisted students, including their verified grades. Now, who will have the access to the verified grades? SPS, which is also facing the allegation, or the college? Definitely college, right? So between B and D, D is going to solve the problem. Talk to your contact. Your contact may not have verified source of information. The college, because you are asking as a recruiter, college is definitely going to give you the verified information. All right. So this is how the problems in decision making are to be addressed. There is one more question on this caselet. Vijaya found that there were many such cases of grade inflation. She was giving final touches to the report when her attention was diverted by a phone call on her personal cell phone. It was from an unlisted member. The caller conveyed to her that it will be in her interest as well as in the interest of the college if the report is not presented to the director. So she is threatened. The caller also told her these findings will change nothing and only result in bad publicity for the college. So वही caller उसको ये भी बोलता है कि इससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा और actually college की बदनामी होगी. The caller identified himself as a well-wisher of the college before hanging up. So उसने ये बोला कि college का अच्छा सोचने वाला है फोन रखने से पहले. So this is the whole situation. The person who has been given the charge of looking up into this matter has received a call, and the person kind of threatened her that it will be her best interest as well as in the college best interest that she does not divulge the information of the committee, the fact-finding committee, which has come up with the actual data. Now consider yourself in Vijaya's position and choose an appropriate decision from the following choices. So here, stakeholder, Vijaya, college, and the students who have done this, right? Because the fact-finding report is dealing with those students only who have manipulated their grades. First, disregard the phone call and do not share its detail with others. Now she is also a stakeholder here, right? And the caller said it will be in her best interest. That means it's a kind of a threat, right? So if she does not share this information with anyone, she is possibly jeopardizing her security. She is risking her position. Understand the implication of a phone call and apply for a leave. So that's a very subjective thing to do, right? So you're compromising on the duty that you have been given, or the responsibility that you have been given to shoulder, that you have to find the facts. So instead of handing over report to the person who has given you the responsibility, you are going on a leave. So that's very evasive thing to do. C, call up the director because he possibly gave you the responsibility to find the facts. Tell him about the phone call and excuse yourself from the responsibility. So first part is absolutely right. You're calling the person, you're telling him about the situation and the problem, at the same time you're excusing yourself from the responsibility. So that is not something which you should do. Talk to the director, seek his opinion. Now this is the situation. Now you tell me what am I supposed to do, because you entrusted me with this responsibility. I'm facing this threat. What is it that I should do now? Right? So between C and D, D definitely is the right course of action to do in this scenario. Why not E, constitute a different committee to investigate the phone call and carry on with your other activities. Committee after committee or commission after commission will not address the problem here. Address the problem immediately. Some problems can be addressed by committee because the solution is not immediate. Solution making is not immediate. But here, solution is immediate. Answer is D. Talk to the director. As he guides you, you will take next course of action. All right. Now, though I took other caselets as well, but because of the time constraint, I'll have to call it a day now. And I'll take one more class on decision making, and that time possibly we will not have any technical glitch, and I will also be able to respond to your comments through a live chat. And I hope I give you some clarity about the approach that you should adopt for solving decision making. One, identifying the problem very clearly, who the stakeholders are, and what your objective is, whether you are doing it for maximizing sales, profit, long-term profit, short-term profit, whether you want to make a decision which is most ethically correct, or you have to choose an option which is most uh, feasible in terms of environment conversation, right? So the guiding principle is going to make your objective. So these are three benchmarks on which you have to consider your decision making. You have to base your decision making process on, and the only resource you have for solving these questions is decision making questions or previous year papers exam. No other exam is going to give you that rigor or that kind of exposure. So base your preparation only on ZAT papers. Thankfully, you have all the ZAT papers available on internet widely. Download those papers and start solving decision making questions. The more exposure you have to these previous year papers question, the better will be your familiarity and better will be your confidence. Higher will be your confidence. All right. So thank you very much for watching the video, and I hope you learned something about decision making, and I hope I gave you some clarity by solving these questions. I'll take one more session in which I'll take the bigger caselets on which will be followed by 4 to 5 questions. So stay tuned on this channel. Keep watching this channel for your preparation for ZAT, SNAP and IIFT this year. All right. Thank you very much.